Harvest Moon used to be one of my all-time favorite game series and was one I actually found basically by accident. Back before having my own source of income, the only way to really try new games was to hit up a Blockbuster on a Friday night with your parents and grab something you wanted to try out through the weekend. This led to me playing and finding what I still consider to be the best N64 game ever created, Mystical Ninja Starring Goemon, and we'll get to that in another video sometime I'm sure, but it also introduced me to this little series right here. See, the cover art doesn't actually tell you much. In fact, I think the only thing that really appealed to me was the character designs. I was a sucker for chibi anime girls in my preteens, sue me. As a kid, you're not making big investments when getting new games to try, especially when renting, so it didn't take a lot to catch my eye and have me willing to try it out. Without even knowing what I'd be getting out of this game, I rented Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life for the GameCube, and honestly, my life was never the same since. See, this wasn't a type of game I was used to at all. In fact, I had no idea that farming simulators even existed. However, the general atmosphere and mechanics revolving around taking care of your crops, your animals, and befriending villagers ended up being so appealing to me that not only did I sink an entire weekend of non-stop farming in, but also a good portion of my young life. I ended up begging to own the game permanently, and from there became obsessed with every previous entry in the series, as well as some of the future entries and spin-off series later on. Nowadays, farming simulators are pretty popular, but probably the most well-known out there currently is Stardew Valley, and for good reason. Most people now realize that Harvest Moon as a series has gone incredibly downhill, and that's for many reasons. Seriously, it was like watching a car accident in slow motion. The games were originally created by Yasuhiro Wada and developed by Victor Interactive Software, who would later be acquired by Marvelous Entertainment, and they'd continue making these games after 2013 under the new title Story of Seasons. This is because Natsume, the publisher of the Harvest Moon games, somehow still held the rights to the name Harvest Moon, and would continue making their own games under this moniker. Now, I don't have a lot of opinions on Story of Seasons because I moved away from the series over time. A lot of the games in this genre really didn't progress in a way that kept me hooked, and Harvest Moon specifically just became worse and worse over the years under Natsume. Games like Harvest Moon: The Lost Valley and Harvest Moon: Mad Dash just didn't live up to the series I was introduced to as a kid. But Marvelous wasn't just making Story of Seasons, they were also creating a new series known as Rune Factory that functioned as an RPG variant of the Harvest Moon formula. You weren't just building a farm in these games, you were following along a storyline, traversing dungeons, fighting bosses, leveling up all these skills, getting better gear, and romancing hot anime babes. That's actually a spin-off series that I'm still interested in to this day. I think one of the strongest things the series has going for it is building off of the sturdy foundation the original games created and adding more technical aspects to it. That's one of the reasons I think Stardew Valley is so popular. At its core, it stays true to a lot of what made Harvest Moon so good, but adds an immense level of depth never before seen within the series. So today I want to take a look at 3 games within the series that I think perfectly encapsulate what made it so appealing and ones that I sunk the most time into as a child. I want to see if these games that I considered amazing really held up to the test of time, or if they've aged like a fine glass of milk. I'm Super Rad, and I believe that Harvest Moon used to be really amazing. Harvest Moon 64 had both a Japanese and Western release in 1999 and was actually the 4th game to be released in the series at this point, with SNES, Game Boy, and Game Boy Color each seeing their own releases as well. I never actually had a copy of the game and had to play it through, less than official means. Sorry Nintendo, please don't sue me. But the game did eventually have a virtual console release on the Wii U in 2017, which I also did not obtain, but it was there, so thanks Nintendo. Please don't sue me. Please. I think the first thing that really hooked me to this entry was the art style. It had an incredibly distinct and simple look that was cute at the same time and felt incredibly comfortable to play in my bedroom on a rainy day. The game works similar to most other entries within the genre. The player inherits a farm and dog within the first day, as well as a horse once they visit the local ranch, which they can raise to take part in horse races. From there, it's all about cleaning up the farm, removing weeds, rocks, and wood in order to have more soil to till and plant seeds in. Chores. fun. The player has to watch over the seeds each day and water them in order to assure they grow. Food can be used to sell or cook. The player can throw these into the collection bin along with other various items that are found around the game world in order to make money daily when they get picked up in the evening. Tools used for farming can even be upgraded, but this is a fairly bare bones mechanic. Once the player uses a certain tool a required amount of times, they'll be able to acquire the upgrade for it, which generally allows them to either break bigger rocks or stumps or till and water in a greater area. It's really simple, but I feel like this type of steady progression was almost revolutionary at the time and was one of the key factors in the foundation of farming simulator games. Slowly becoming more and more effective at your daily tasks was a wonderful feeling and helped push you to grind for hours at a time. Even the player's house can be upgraded to offer various utilities like a kitchen, and there's other aspects of the game world that require the player's intervention in order to access new areas of the map. Like most games in the series, the player can get married to one of the bachelorettes, each of whom has a rival for the player. By befriending multiple characters in the town, the player can help pair the bachelorettes up with your rivals, or you can simply try to win the affection of your preferred bachelorette by spamming her with items and taking part in relationship events. Taking care of your farm and befriending villagers all contribute towards your final score. The game takes place over 4 seasons per year, with each season spanning about a month. After 2.25 years, the player's father will visit them and gauge their progress, leading to multiple endings. This is probably the weakest part about the entries at this point. Harvest Moon 64 specifically had a ridiculously fast time cycle, with days progressing to night in no time at all. This leads to a really rushed feeling when playing if you want to get as much done as possible, and with issues like fatigue or unfamiliarity with game concepts, it's incredibly rare to ever see the perfect ending unless you know exactly what you're doing. On top of that, the game's controls and menu systems are archaic by today's standards. I found myself scratching my head trying to remember how to place items in my sack in order to carry them all back to the camp or hand out as gifts, and this really slowed me down. The fatigue system was also pretty rough to revisit, with the player taking almost no actions at all before getting tired. Getting too tired or staying up too late can lead to illness, so you really do feel rushed. This is an even bigger issue considering the game didn't bother to put the UI on your screen while playing, so you have to pause just to see what the in-game time currently is. Apparently, the game was knocked for audio and visual glitches, and while I never personally really experienced any audio issues, I did experience a lot of visual problems. However, some of these may have been due to what I was playing the game on. There's plenty of issues with this entry, like the size of each individual zone being relatively small, but it was cut a lot of slack because of how revolutionary it was, essentially contributing to what was almost a brand new genre for people. Even with all these issues, the game had the ability to hook you for hours and was incredibly comforting. All in all, it was a great start for the direction of the series, but the age is there, and I honestly couldn't find myself putting too much time into it upon revisiting Harvest Moon 64. That's probably why I didn't give myself enough footage for this. Great. Now this is a Harvest Moon game, at least it was at the time. Despite improving on the formula in many ways, Friends of Mineral Town has still succumbed to old age. There are a lot of pros to go over, however. Released on the Game Boy Advance in 2003, Friends of Mineral Town reintroduced players to the characters from previous entries like Back to Nature or Harvest Moon 64, albeit with slight personality changes and occupational differences. The player inherits their farm from an old man they met as a child while visiting the town with their parents. After becoming pen pals, the old man eventually passes away and the farm is left in the player's hands. Once again, you must clean up and grow the farm through various means. Upgrading the home, tools, and various areas of the map now has added depth within this entry, such as tools requiring specific types of ore for the blacksmith to be able to upgrade them. Farming is what you expect. The player can cut down weeds for fodder, break rocks for stone, and chop wood for better wood, and collect and sell various items found across the map, or gift them to various villagers to up their friendship level. And man, are there some quality of life improvements in that sense. For one, the player can now actively see the heart level of each marriage candidate when talking to them, meaning progress is obvious and the player will know exactly when they can propose. The biggest quality of life improvement, however, is the fact that the day and time UI is now actively on the screen while playing, and you no longer have to pause to see it. Unfortunately, you still can't actively switch out items that you're holding without pausing, which leads to a lot of downtime and inventory management. This is especially brutal in the beginning, as your sack can only hold 3 tools and 3 general items at a time. There's multiple other changes touches as well. The game drops the isometric style and ups the saturation, leading to a much more straightforward and colorful experience. Map sizes are larger and easier to navigate with the town's simplified vertical design, and the player has a lot more time throughout the day to do activities in comparison to Harvest Moon 64's bullet speed pacing. This was definitely one of the games I sunk the most time into. It was just so easy to pick up and play. No loading times, barely any screen transitions, and a simplified gameplay experience while adding more functionality for the player to utilize. It was the little touches as well, such as befriending Cliff and helping him get a job before the end of the first year in order to prevent him from permanently leaving the village. Players could even connect their Game Boy Advance to the GameCube in order to bring over 2 characters from A Wonderful Life, which would allow the player to learn unique gourmet recipes or buy records in a record player. Aspects of the game like mining took place in a 255 level mine that the player could traverse by breaking various rocks to collect ore until they found the next staircase downward. This was a system popularized and later revisited in future games and even in Stardew Valley. If you really wanted to get into the grind, tools were where it was at. On top of having your normal tools which can be upgraded, the player can find cursed tools throughout the mine. These tools are exceptionally useful, either allowing you to catch rare fish or perform various tasks in a larger area of your farm. The big downside was that these tools couldn't be unequipped until blessed, and to bless them required you to perform various tasks multiple times or simply wait a number of days, which could be incredibly annoying if you were doing anything else in this game. Another issue I forgot about with old school Monster Hunter games that I noticed in Friends of Mineral Town was how they handled the seed planting. See, one seed can cover up to 9 tilled squares, which is all well and good, but once the seed reaches a certain growth level, they gain hitboxes and can't be traversed, meaning that the middle square has a good chance of dying or growing slower than your other crops, and the aesthetic implications when you're trying to make a perfectly aligned farm growing crops in a timely manner, it's frustrating to say the least. Luckily, certain tool upgrades remedy this later on. On top of that, I was so used to being able to throw items into my shipping container that I didn't realize even missing the container slightly would lead to you permanently losing the crop, which, when I say I lost my mind at this. All that being said, Friends of Mineral Town was full of amazing content for the player to experience. As a kid, I felt like the game was over after getting married, but with an older eye, I can see how much I personally missed out on. I highly recommend revisiting this game, and if you'd rather play as a girl, there's a re-release called More Friends of Mineral Town that allows you to do so. Additionally, the game was recently remade under the Story of Seasons title, but I don't really have an opinion on that at the moment, maybe in a future video. All in all, the game was incredibly solid, easy to get into, and easy to lose hundreds of hours in, but was it my personal favorite? Not by a long shot. A Wonderful Life is by far my favorite Harvest Moon experience and one I recommend to anyone wanting to get into the series. Not only did its base edition release on the GameCube, but Another Wonderful Life as well, which lets you play as a female character who can romance the male bachelors in the town. It also has a definitive edition release on the PS2 called A Harvest Moon A Wonderful Life Special Edition, which adds extra content, including a new bachelorette. Like I mentioned before, this is the game that got me into the series and changed my view on what a video game could do or be forever. I never realized at the time how gratifying it could feel to play a calm game simply about grinding, producing, and socializing. And it's one of the games I always wish I could go back to and experience again for the first time. The game's similar to other entries within the series in that you inherit a farm, but it's not as run down as you may be previously used to. Instead, all of the possible fields you can till are ready to go right away, and it's up to the player to decide how they're going to shape their farm and make money right from the get-go. Ranching also returns, allowing the player to purchase various animals to take care of. If any game simulated the epitome of the cozy cottage farm vibe, it was this one. And I think a lot of that is based around how slow the game actually is, while still managing to simulate progression in a really unique way. See, in most Harvest Moon games, the player can progress and get married, form relationships, and even have a child, but A Wonderful Life was the first game where each year that passed in-game would actually cause the characters to age. If you have a child, it will grow from a toddler to a young adult, have hopes and aspirations that you can watch and somewhat dictate for their future occupation. Your marriage may be rocky, have its ups and downs, or be rekindled, people within the village may pass away. You eventually will pass away, and that's shocking. Watching the people around you grow old with you, watching their relationships progress and their lives change gradually over the period of many years is a really unique experience, and one of the main reasons Harvest Moon has stuck with me for so long. But seriously, the game is incredibly slow. Days move at a snail's pace, giving you plenty of time to complete any tasks you're working on currently, and there's multiple side events and mini games to take part in to fill in the gaps. It's so calm and soothing. I would often project myself into the game as a child, fully immersed in this world, and when it was over, it was one of those games that left a really empty feeling in me because it was gone. The experiences I had and the people I met were effectively wiped from existence at the time, which I feel really taught me something in the long run about loss and death that I still think about to this day. Now, I haven't talked too much about the mechanics, but there are a lot. Hybrid crops where you merge seeds together to create something new and valuable, cooking, upgrading your house and tools, and so much more. One big factor is that, for the most part, all the characters surrounding you are original designs, leading to a very fresh experience if coming from previous entries. The bachelorettes Nami, Muffy, and Celia all have their own goals and lives, and these can affect how they'll interact with you in the future as years pass and the personality of your child when born. Oddly enough, the extra bachelorette in Special Edition is Lumina, a teenage character from the original release you can meet in the first year who progresses to an adult in Chapter 2. The option is there, but it was always a weird concept for me. Knowing someone as a teenager and waiting for them to be of age in order to marry is just really uncomfortable. So it's always Celia or Nami for me. Yasuhiro Wada has even stated that Nami is his favorite bachelorette within the entire series, and I think I have to agree. The craziest thing about this game was that it had a definitive end. That is, until Special Edition, which allowed you to unlock a free play mode after your death. All in all, the experience of A Wonderful Life is wonderful, and I don't think any game within the series or within the genre has been able to properly emulate the same feelings this game conveyed. It is truly a masterclass in farming simulator games. Sometimes when I come up with these video concepts, I ask myself what the point is and try to form a script around that. With this one, I had a lot of trouble. I don't necessarily want to convince anyone that these are the best games within the series, but convey that these games made a huge impact on me as a kid, and future games in the series slowly began to lose that ability. If you're to try any game within the series, please consider giving A Wonderful Life Special Edition a chance. You can even get it through the PlayStation 4 via the online shop. And if you're looking for something a little more modern, give the Rune Factory series a try. It's the only set of entries that has been able to constantly keep me hooked with each release since A Wonderful Life and Stardew Valley. Rune Factory 5 is on its way, and Rune Factory 4 was re-released on the Nintendo Switch. Harvest Moon really did used to be amazing, and while it may have fallen from grace, there are many other series that have used its foundation to build upon and make something fantastic. Stardew Valley is still being updated to this day, and Rune Factory is simply a fantastic series. Maybe Story of Seasons can scratch that itch as well, but it's something I'll have to personally check out in the future. If you liked this video, consider subscribing to the channel and leave a comment about your experiences revolving around Harvest Moon. If you didn't like this video, subscribe anyways, and I'll surprise you later with better content. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you in the next video.